Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Elizabeth Townsend-Guard, your host. I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School. I also hold 2 fellowships right now, one at the Business School and one at the Newcomb Institute at Tulane. And I just want to quilt. All right, so today we talk with Alison Parker of Ric Rack NOLA, which is a textile recycling and sewing group that's based on costumers in the film industry. And it's just an amazing interview, and what they did with the masks and getting fabric to people is insanely remarkable. So I hope you enjoy this interview. And this was recorded on May 5th, 2020. So we're going to start with a super easy question, which is tell me, for preservation purposes, tell me your name and where you're calling from.
Yep. So my name is Alison Parker, and I'm calling from my boat, which is on the lakefront.
Oh, in New Orleans, right?
In New Orleans, yeah.
Wow, your boat. Are you always on your boat? Tell me the boat.
Yeah,
name.
We live aboard our sailboat.
Really? That is so cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the other question we ask everybody is, tell us your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life.
I actually remember my mom always knitting and my grandfather always crocheting first. I was the first one to sew, and that was from taking a class in middle school.
Yeah.
And from there being pretty much into embroidery and any kind of fixing things around the house.
Very cool. And tell us a little bit about sort of your life before this. Before we're recording on May 5th, 2020. Tell us about your life, say, in January. Tell us a little bit about, I know a little bit about it, but sort of contextualize what your life was like.
Yeah, so my life in January, I was working on a film as a wardrobe supervisor, doing reshoots for a Russell Crowe action movie that had missed a couple of sequences when they were shooting here in August. So they just came back to shoot for 2 weeks. So I was doing that for 2 weeks, and then organizing with the nonprofit to prepare for a fundraiser we were going to be having in April. And
tell us about your Tell us about your nonprofit.
Yeah, so the nonprofit is Ric Rack, and it was started about 8 years ago by a bunch of costumers in film and television who, for me especially, have just been surrounded by a lot of waste. And we're trying to figure out a way to eradicate that or tackle it. And at the same time, we wanted to be able to find or provide resources for kids in New Orleans that wanted to learn how to sew. We couldn't find any available sites at that time. So we kind of figured that we would combine the two. One would supply the product to meet the other one's needs. So in essence, the leftover fabrics and clothes after a film or theater production would be used as the materials in the classroom for learning how to sew and learning how to repurpose. So it wasn't like, we're going to teach you how to repurpose. Here's a list of sewing supplies you need to go buy.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be like, okay, if you want to learn how to repurpose, these are all the things that we have donated. Let's see what kind of fun stuff we can come up with doing that.
So cool. I think you've got to be the coolest thing on the planet. So, what was it like? Tell us a little bit more about Ric Rack before the mask making and all the other things that were happening. Tell us sort of who you were, how it worked, and where, all that kind of stuff.
Yes. So we would basically of clothing or fabric from film, television, or theater. So there was another film I was working on that was like circa 1967. So we got a bunch of vintage things from them that would go into our sale. So we have an annual sale, which is our fundraiser called Hollywood Thrift. And we put all the clothes and costumes and accessories we get basically from film and television on sale to the public at sort of, a crazy reduced price. And that kind of pays for our programs during the year. So one of them that we've done for like the past 7 years is a repurposed fashion camp at the Ogden Museum. And that's always like a big favorite with the local teens. It's for middle schoolers. It's a 2-week camp. They do sewing with us in the morning, or I should say half the day. Sometimes it's the afternoon, and the half the day they move. But they get an extensive, not just crash course in sewing and learning about fabrics and design, but really we kind of hit home with what happens to textiles when they go into the landfill. How does it, eventually turn into greenhouse gases? What else can we do with our clothes besides throw them away or give them away? And I think for me, that was a pivotal moment, or that really opened my eyes, was a book by Elizabeth Klein called Overdressed: The High Price of Cheap Fashion. And in there, she says that there's enough fabric made to cover the planet 3 times, to wrap around the planet Earth 3 times. And I just thought that was a little excessive. And so that's something like in the camp and in our classes that we always hit home with kids. Like, where does fabric come from? That's really cool. It's not just this magical thing, how was it invented? And then what happens to it afterwards, because it doesn't biodegrade. So it's a lot of new vocabulary for them, and just kind of like a little bit more social responsibility. But getting like the parents afterwards who love the fashion show, and kids afterwards who come up and they're like, thank you for teaching my kids about fast fashion. I don't know how they would have ever learned about it otherwise.
Yeah. So very cool. And tell us a little bit about your makerspace, because I've always wanted to come by and see it, which we will eventually when we, can leave our houses. But tell us a little bit about that and what role that plays in what you do.
Yeah, so the makerspace, unfortunately, is in flux right now. We're moving. Oh. So for right now, we're just working out of our warehouse, which is where a lot of our donations come, and it's like our sorting facility. But what we do at our makerspace is really, we offer memberships to people who kind of like a little bit more of a social aspect with sewing. So anybody who's like stuck, sewing at their kitchen table or dining room table, or making costumes there, or quilts or what have you, can get a membership and come in like any time of day. And we had a couple of rooms designated for people who just like rented their own room. But it was also just a great place to come to see like who was working on what and get different ideas on what. So it was very communal. Nice. And then we also sold our fabrics there. So fabrics that have been donated to us. So it might be something vintage, it might be something weird from a Broadway show, or something, from a 1960s movie or whatever. We'd have that on sale, as well as trims, buttons, zippers, you name it. We kind of get, a little bit of everything in there.
That's very cool.
And then of course we had workshops and classes. So a goal of mine with being around costumes, I started out working for the Cirque du Soleil before I went on to film and television, was to sort of bring some teachers here outside of the realm here, because it kind of felt like for me for a while, especially working in film and television, that we were always reinventing the wheel with the same crew and the same seamstresses. And I kind of wanted to have some new teachers brought in with new ideas and new skills and new like tips and tricks. So we did 2 classes where I brought in people from New York and from Las Vegas, one to do a course making class, and the other one to do an extensive class on sergers and working with overlocks. It was called Don't Fear the Serger.
Oh my gosh, I'd so take that class. I'm like madly in love but terrified of my serger.
Right, I know. It's kind of a love-hate thing, right?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, we were kind of like an all-encompassing thing, as well as the kids' classes. We had those for doing after-school programs at the space, and then as well as going into schools. Like 2 schools we just actually, unfortunately, didn't get to finish out the semester with. We were going in to help them with their productions. One was The Wiz. So again, we sort of bring in education, educational tools about textile recycling. And then we just start bringing in like, buckets of of fabrics.
Oh my
and
gosh. I would have been
teach,
like upset as a kid because I did theater as a kid, and then we, the costumers always look so interesting and exciting. I think I would have just been completely obsessed with your space. Probably would have changed the direction of my life on huge ways. And I imagine you see that with kids as well, that you're giving them all these resources that they wouldn't normally have at home to create and make amazing things.
Yeah, totally. And it's also like gives them permission, like it gives them permission to like, you don't have to be right. There's no right or wrong way, just, to have fun with it really, and just to be creative and to let them sort of explore that part of themselves.
Yeah. I totally want to, when you're back up and running, I will be an empty nester in a year, and I will be so about your classes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So you have this amazing thing. You're teaching kids, you're involved with the really cool stuff, and grown-ups and the makerspace. And then what happens? Tell us sort of how you've pivoted and sort of what's going on with you now.
So what happens, I was kind of a little tentative because I just started seeing people going, a little post here and a little post there about making masks. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I see it and I can see where this road is going, and I can see it turning into a full-time job really fast. Because a lot of people had a lot of questions with what's the right pattern, what's the right materials, what do people want, and also who wants it. And so I kind of let a few days go by seeing people go, hey, I think I'm gonna make a mask, or look, so and so needs mask, or I made a mask. Until I was finally like, I got a call from a nurse. And I think that's kind of an impetus for a lot of people that was like, we're in an isolation unit and we're starting to run out of masks. And I was like, okay, so now we've got an in somewhere. So I'm not just making them. Right. And I at least couldn't have somebody sort of test it, some prototypes or whatever, and send us on the right direction. So that was around that March 13th time. Right. I got on a large conference call with, and I say large, like 20 to 30 people were on this call. I don't even know how I got a word in, but it was like the Cajun Navy, the city council, and everybody sort of, other makers, like, how can we all be on the same page? How can we connect people who need masks with people who are making masks or any kind of PPE, or face shields or gowns. So all of these brains in the same place, but I connected then with a Tulane researcher who said that he would take a few of our different prototypes that we had and put them through his lab as far as how they would work from there. And that was on the front end. On the back end, then I sent out emails to the women and men in the 478 in our film costume world and said, okay, who wants in on this? This is kind of the commitment. And so it kind of changes your normal production workspace because people are self-isolating, right? So now I need runners, and I need a lot more people who can help coordinate, because it's not just we're all working in the same space. There's your thread over there, and there's your thing over there, and I need this and I need that. It's just go get it. Well, now I need somebody to drive it there. Right. So the Tulane research, basically what I got from them was that, with the cloth masks is there's really sort of like not a right or wrong. It's kind of like the difference between like a Chevy truck and a Ford truck. Like you're looking at about the same structure, same kind of materials in a way. None of them are really going to be a John Deere tractor, which is the N95. Right. All right. So these basically were all about not breathability, but how much air can get in and out. Yeah. Which is a pass fail. So there's no like these masks are 95% better or this fabric is 70% better. It was really just like, if I put this mask on, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like, if I can smell whatever their test thing is, then it's failed. So it didn't matter if you were using the Deaconess or the mask made for a nurse by a nurse or whichever one. Right. Like it was really just pass fail. So I think that was a big eye opener for us. The main thing I think, of course, with the washing and the taking care of it was where the 100% cotton came in, was like, this thing's got to be able to take a lot of washings. So, and a lot of hot water. Yeah. So we kind of went away from the synthetics there. prototyped a few other masks, and then sort of hit the ground running. I think we kept with that same group at that hospital for a while, and then from there switched over to working with one of the city council members, Kristen Palmer, with a lot of her constituents, with the NOPD, with the Louisiana Department of Health. And then from there, I think it was like an article I was quoted in, NOLA.com. So I get a phone call from Walmart that says, we want to donate all of our fabric to you.
That's so cool.
In 6 stores.
Oh my God.
In 6 stores, we want to donate all our fabric to you. So, and some of them were like the superstores where they had a lot, and some of them weren't, you know, they just had a couple of crafty things.
Yeah.
So I went to one store and kind of went through, and I was like, we really don't have the space or, you know, even just the manpower to process this much stuff.
Yeah.
But we'll get it started. So I think we got about 200 plus bolts of cotton, some bias tape, some thread, some ribbon, and just like put the word out. So, you know, a few of those organizations, Stitches Without Borders, the face mask shortage initiative, where they have, I mean, now they have 600, 800 members where they had, you know, 100 before.
Yeah.
Started coming to our sorting place. So we were at a church because we were getting ready to have our fundraiser, and just kind of stayed there and made the church our base camp where we gave out fabric. So people would fly to Form to get free fabric, and usually like up to 10 yards, unless they're sewing with a group. And we try to give up 70 to 100 yards.
It's amazing. So what do you
yeah.
have a website for this? Tell me where I should be looking as we talk.
So that fabric is all gone. So we gave out the last yard of that. We probably went over 3,000 yards that
Amazing.
we gave out in about
Amazing.
4 weeks.
Amazing.
Yeah. Like a week or so ago. So now we've switched over to organizing our inventory. So our inventory of fabric is, like I said before, you name it, you know, from glitzy glam, high expensive stuff to vintage pillowcases. We kind of get it all. And we're starting to sort that now and go through and pull out the 100% cottons. And so we're listing that on eBay, which is our eBay store is Ric Rack NOLA 14. And that's all 100% cotton bundles, and it's 7 yards for $20. And you can pick up, or we can deliver, or we have been shipping also.
I'm trying to get to your eBay store. So
okay,
NOLA 14. Let's see if I can do it. I'm not the best at this. Ric Rack, RIC. RACK. NOLA 14, the number 14. I'll get there. And so tell me about your strategy of this idea of bundles and selling bundles. Like, is it to make, like, tell us, like, you were giving out, like, this relationship between donation and purchase is really interesting. And I'm curious sort of what your thoughts are about that.
Well, because normally our fabric that we get that's donated to us is what we use in our fundraiser. So when we have the Hollywood Thrift and the clothes go on sale, we also put the fabric on sale. So we're not in a position to be able to donate that financially.
Right.
We are trying to get some grants or some sponsors that could pay for that or buy it from us so that we can still donate. I mean, the grants that I wrote for were really just like these seamstresses who are, by the way, volunteer seamstresses.
Right.
Everybody who's donating their time, and some of them really, like, I get the most heartening emails of, you know, sewing morning till night and just gave away my 1,000th mask. I'm so excited, you know, like all of those that you get right now.
Right.
That some people are in financial straits, you know, so it's like they have to decide after getting donated fabric, like, okay, do I put food on the table or do I go and get more fabric to make masks? What's more important? So
I agree.
We are trying to find somebody to help sponsor that. We're just not in a position to be able to donate ours right now.
No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And you've done so much.
Yeah.
I think the amazing story here, and I'm not sure how we capture it, is the entrepreneurial and the massive organization. I mean, like what you've been doing is stunning, right? This is like, and we see this in a number of groups across the country. Like you are putting together your super smartness and your organizational skills and then doing this on this amazing, and I think that's part of the story, don't you? I'm just amazed at the numbers that and what's happening on the mask making front.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm really amazed at like how many people are sewing.
Yeah.
You know, like either ones that are like, I used to sew and I've come back to sewing, but like our list, so people would fill out a Google form when they wanted fabric, the Walmart fabric, and I know we made it past 150 entries. So it's like 150 people, and I might have known a dozen of those previously, you know, that I didn't know before.
Yeah.
And people who are just like learning to sew in order to make masks. Like that's amazing to me. And it's funny, like I see the posts where it's like people who are doing like a DIY project or gardening or some experiments in the kitchen or what have you. And it's like there's other women who are sewing are doing it like night and day. Like it's kind of a common thread, which is really kind of a miracle.
So
people who sew, like I think it's a common bond.
Yeah. And I feel like at least I'm one of those. Like I'm such a regular quilter and regular sewist. And I feel like I have to. Like if I feel like I don't want to do it, it's like, yeah, but the doctors are out, like so many people are out there trying to help us and save us. And like, how could you not, right? Like every time I go back to this, it's like, how, you know, you have to, we all have to contribute in our own way. So I make, 25 masks today or 50 masks or whatever it is.
That's awesome.
Like, it's just what you've got to do.
Yeah, totally.
All right. I've got some sewing questions for you. So, related to the masks. So, the ties. Oh my goodness. That would be like the sort of the ties versus elastic. And I bought a serger. That was our latest purchase because I thought that would help with the ties. And it's been amazing. Like the level. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are about ties. And if you think that the serger will hold up, like we're knotting the ends of them, but I'm curious. We're starting to wash them to see how strong they are, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so that was something that sort of came up in the very beginning too with those prototypes with the University Medical Center was they were anti-elastic. And as I started to see people sort of scrambling for elastic, I was like, I'm glad you don't like it because that seems like a very scary road to go down right now. Like, it's gold, Yeah. And I think for them, it was a lot of, it's hard to fit it really. It's two things. Either it's too tight or it's too loose. Yeah. And there's no sort of in between.
Totally. So this is really interesting. We like the first day I made masks, we were like doing exactly what everybody does, right? Making all the different versions and seeing. And so I had my kid who's got a small head and she's a teenager and my husband who's got a big head. And nothing would fit them the same except for the tied masks. The surgical masks were the best. And we were like, how do we know what size head people are going to have, right? So that was really early on where we're like, well, this is weird, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I think from that, I was like, well, I'm so grateful they don't like elastic because I don't want to have to try to find it, run out of it, and then scramble for it. So so we went with ties, and I think, we went through bias tape first pretty fast because that's limited supply again. Right. And then, and now we're using twill tape.
Oh, interesting.
Because we can get it like on a roll of, I don't even know. I think the last roll we got was 700 yards or something like that. And then we've also there's the people who use cut up strips of t-shirts, right? So something with a little bit of stretch, some spandex. I've seen some other people use some strips of spandex too, because it doesn't fray, right? So it just curls up.
Yeah.
And it's softer. I don't really know the longevity of washing the spandex, like how much, what point that gets to before that starts breaking down.
Yeah.
But and I would think that the serger would be okay. Mm-hmm. You do have to knot the ends.
Yeah. Well, it's going so much faster than trying to, fold it in and do all the ties were just, killing. They were the worst part,
right? Yeah, totally. In the very beginning, it was like, I mean, we were cutting up aluminum pans for the nose piece. I mean, it
Uh-huh.
was everything. What have we got within our arm's reach in the
Yeah.
kitchen, in the boat? What can we use?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Shoelaces, right? People use shoelaces for
Shoelaces,
ties
right?
too. I
Those
saw
look great
that.
too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, two more mask questions and then my final question. So the other one is, do you feel like people should do one kind of fabric on one side and another fabric on the other side, or do you think it doesn't, just making the mask is enough, like whatever way you make it?
Yeah. I mean, I get that point, and I think actually to go with that just a little bit further, when we were having those conversations weeks ago with all the different players in this, washing and care of became a big issue, because it was really just like, it doesn't matter what you make your mask out of or which pattern you follow. If you don't follow the right procedures once you've got the mask,
Yeah.
of how to handle it, wash it, take care of it, then it's all of the work you've done. It's kind of null and void.
Yeah.
Right. So that was another thing that we added onto our masks, was they go into a Ziploc bag. After we make them all, they go to one central place. One of our seamstresses that has a sanitary thing. Her husband's been sick, so she's got this sanitation thing she does. She cleans all of them at once in hot water. They go straight, with gloved hands, from the dryer into a Ziploc bag, sealed, and then a sticker goes on the outside of them with the wash and care of instructions. So to wash it every time you use it, to not touch it with your hands. If you do have to touch it with your hands, make sure your hands are clean. All of that's just as important. So as far as doing the two sides of the fabric, I mean, I remember somebody saying that it helps them know which side was against their face last, which I think for us, for the pattern we're using now, you can kind of tell, the seams are on the inside versus the outside.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure. I think I've seen some people who do
like that.
flannel on the inside too.
Yeah.
And I haven't really seen the longevity of how the flannel holds up either. But when we were giving out that Walmart fabric, we had some requests for flannel, and I was like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. We have flannel here, and that someone had donated to us, and we tried it, but it was really hot. And so I
would imagine.
Right?
Yeah.
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 So I don't know. All right. So my last question really is sort of, what is this story? If we think back 10 years from now, what are we going to be saying about the spring of 2020, when people were making masks and all the things that you've been doing? What is the takeaway, or what do you think the story is here?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I kind of hate to say it, but I feel like the people who sew, and maybe it's not just the people who sew, but we all kind of are in this, not necessarily a mend and make do kind of mindset, but we are in a way, and we also are all in this mindset of a call to service.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I don't know hardly any seamstress that is redoing their bathroom right now. Right. I really don't. They're almost all sewing. Maybe they're not sewing night and day, but they almost are. And I feel like there's that common thing of, wow, people who sew are really this not only an independent and maker and what have you, but somebody who really stands up when in need, which I find a lot in our community anyway. From people that I know, or they're always need help picking up fabric or dropping off fabric or whatever. They're a great group of people. But for this one, it was sewers to me are just as much of the heroes in this front line. I feel like they should have that same sign in their yard that says a hero lives here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's amazing. And the amount of activity, and that every mask matters, and that everybody needs them. I mean, imagine we did friends and family for 2 weeks, and it just kept coming. I mean, it's still coming. But and the level of gratefulness of when you give people masks is overwhelming. I think it's kind of remarkable in that way too.
Yeah, it totally is. It'll be for me. I'm dying personally to see 6 months from now, what that looks like. I mean, I know I see people already doing rainbow sparkles and sequin ones and stuff like that, and I don't know if it's going to become more of a personalized thing. I mean, I think we'll probably see maybe the first time July 4th and when the holidays come around, how personalized and interesting and unique they get. But that for me is like, I can't wait to see what masks like in 6 months.
Yeah, totally. Well, I am just so in awe and impressed with you, and I'm so glad. I know we've been trying to get together forever, and I don't know, you're just the coolest, and it's amazing what you're doing, and I can't wait for you to be open again so I can come play, and I just thank you for all this time. I really do appreciate it.
Oh yeah, totally. Thank you. I mean, for me, I think another big thing, if I might just be able to just add it, is for everybody who's just like, I got a little scrap of fabric or an old shirt or anything like that, or things that you normally like you might throw away if you're cutting fabric that's just a little bit. It's like, now look, all you need is a piece of 8 by 10 inch fabric to make something that could save your life, you know? So for me, like, I honestly, in my maker space and when I'm working at a shop, if I see like fabric in the trash can, I don't care how small it is, you get like, I mean, smoke starts coming out of my ears and I start, my eyes start spinning in my head. And I just hope people start thinking about that more. Like, you know, I wish I wouldn't have thrown that fabric away that I had before, or I wish I would have saved those scraps that I had before, or something like that. I mean, besides the chemicals and greenhouse gases and the detriment it does to the climate, it's also like right now just proving its worth in another way, you know?
All right, so I have 2 related questions to that. First, I think, how do we like, it seems somebody donated fabric to me recently and it was just amazing. So it seems like encouraging people that have stashes, the stuff to destash the stuff they don't want, and to find places locally to donate it is like a big moment at this point, because we're all running out of fabric. You ran out of, how many yards did you have? You ran out of fabric, and we ran out of fabric. Like, it's not good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then secondly, what do you think about repurposing with clothing and other things? Like, or do you think we're going to get there where we're looking to, you know, because people also are, you know, can clean out their closets and other things like that. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on those 2 things.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're there, because I do get emails of like, I'm going into my closet, I'm going into my friend's closet to get stuff because we don't have enough, we've gone through fabric. Or I just met somebody yesterday who told me, he was like, I just realized I had all these sheets I didn't use anymore, or what have you, which is another wonderful thing. I mean, I think for most people, when I say textile recycling, like, it doesn't kind of click into what it is. You know, there's many different ways. Like, there's secondhand clothes that go to third world countries is textile recycling. But then there's also like textile recycling that is clothes and fabric that's chewed up and turned into carpet and insulation and all kinds of things. It's really just whatever we can do just to avoid that fabric or clothes going into a trash can, going into the landfill. It really is the most important thing.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, well, let's see where we are in 6 months. Maybe we will be back chatting again. It's so weird. It's that, like, you know, in Terminator 2, when they have the road ahead of them, they have no idea what's going to happen. It feels a little bit like
that,
you know?
Right. Totally. Yeah. I know. There's a bit of me that's like, I want to be down at the end of that road, and then I'm kind of like, I'm okay going slow. Right.
Slow. And I imagine with the film industry and with your line of work, with the film industry and costuming, it's got to be hard as well, you know? Yeah. It's a game changer, all right. Yeah. Craziness. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
And it was such a pleasure. Oh, that's so great. I'm really a huge fan. So I'm so psyched. I really love your project and your nonprofit. And I can't wait to play more. Are you okay with us posting this publicly?
Yes, please.
Awesome.
Was it okay that I didn't want to be like too egregious, but I did want to say something about like our fabrics that are for sale. I didn't want to
no, of course. No. We're like, okay. We're good. We're good with that. Yeah. I'm totally about, cool. I mean, I think it's a balance at this point. I mean, even us, like, we're starting to get requests from people, and before it was like, sure, we can do it. But now the requests are too big for us. And also we don't have any fabric left. So, you know, we're like, well, as long as you want to purchase supplies, and, you know, we're happy to donate our time. But it's getting to a point where and also we've been doing donating to local crafters and artists who are making their money from masks, because that will decrease their, that will increase their profit because their costs will go down. And I think that's also important. Like, people, this is hard work. People don't understand how hard, like, sewing masks is not fun, and it's exhausting.
Right.
And so,
mentally. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Mentally and physically.
And physically, and it completely wrecks your house with every, like, the amount of, like, fluff and weirdness, and, like, it's not good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah,
like
totally.
hazard
I know, it's
pay.
funny too, like the places where I've dropped off masks or fabric or what have you, I'm like, it's like meeting a guy in a van down under the bridge by the river kind of stuff, It's
totally weird.
totally,
right?
like, yeah. And you're both wearing masks and gloves. Yeah.
Yeah, our porch. It's so weird. Like, the amount of activity that happens at our house every day, of, like, stuff that's like on the porch, right? It's just, there's a lot going on. I guess it keeps us busy, but it's very odd. It's a very odd, and
it really is, isn't it? Yeah, totally.
Your work is amazing, and thank you again for all your time today.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
All right, take
care.
care.
I appreciate it.
I will send you a post. I'll send you a link when it's posted.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, and I'm Elizabeth Townsend Garr. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.